everybody, and welcome to another edition of On a Couch Talking Sports. As always, I'm Robbie, joined as always by Kyle, and our special guest tonight, who you probably remember from our one of our mini golf episodes back last summer, which seems so long ago. Our buddy Jerome is back. Gentlemen, how are you? Well, it is our another social distancing edition of On a Couch Talking Sports from, again, the comforts of home and Zoom. So we're excited to be back with another episode, and sort of excited to continue an episode trend that we've been doing. That was actually Jerome's idea, so I gotta give credit where credit's due. Thank you, Jerome, for that. Yes. We're going to be sort of reviewing another team tonight. If you remember last week, we did the 2013 Boston Red Sox. Tonight, we're going to sort of go a little bit even further back to when we were all, I don't even know if we were teenagers at this point when this happened, but I think it was actually preteens. I think we were all actually preteens when this happened. And that is the 2001 New England Patriots, or should I say the Super Bowl champion 2001 New England Patriots, the first of now a line of 6 Super Bowl titles for the New England Patriots. Certainly no better team to review than that 2001 Patriot team. And that team also gave birth, guys, to the legend that is now Tom Brady. Obviously, that was his first year as starting quarterback for the New England Patriots. And actually, before we jump into that, Jerome, because obviously Kyle and I have talked about it on the past few episodes, but I wanted to get your take on Tom Brady leaving the New England Patriots.
Okay. Position. I'm from New Mexico, so I'm more good with Broncos. Got into the Patriots while I was here.
That's fair.
Definitely my roommates and definitely one of the hardcore fans are more like struck that he's leaving. It's gonna feel weird to me because ever since I came here, it's always been Patriot. It's always been Brady and the Patriots. So I've always associated those two together. So it's gonna be a bit odd, I guess, just to see Tom Brady moving on, because I'm just I just thought he was gonna be with the team for the rest of his life.
So did we all. So yeah, it's really, really unfortunate. We're still sort of getting over it, but yeah, but it is kind of nice now to kind of reminisce about the great things that Tom Brady did for the Patriots. And of course, one of those things was that first Super Bowl year when he sort of came on after the injury to Drew Bledsoe, and led the team to a Super Bowl. And so I'll start with you on this one, because the weird thing is, it's weird to think of a time. This was actually before you moved to Wellesley. This is before you and I knew each other, because I think we were in 6th grade when this happened. Yeah, a lot went on that year, because it was actually the same season as September 11th and all that. So it's kind of a lot of layers to that season. But Kyle, I wanted to sort of get your perspective, and then I'll sort of get to what do you remember most about that 2001 season. I know it was a long time ago. You're 19 years now, but what do you sort of remember back, just overall from that season? Sort of thinking back in the time machine there.
Oh my God! So I just realized this is the second sports topic. Where just a quick little note. This is the second sports topic, or the sports season that we've talked about, that kind of revolved around a huge kind of crazy event that happened.
True. Good point. Yeah. We promised that not all the teams we talk about are going to have been centered around disasters or tragedies.
Yeah, because for those of you guys who didn't tune in for our last week's episode, we talked about the 2013 Red Sox, and we all know what happened then with the Boston Marathon. So I know it's becoming a pattern, I guess. But so to begin with this season, so at the time, I actually hadn't been in Boston yet either. I was actually living in New Jersey at the time. And I remember that and so the interesting thing, just to kind of set up the whole premise here, one of the reasons why I really want to talk about that particular season was I was the only Boston fan in New Jersey, pretty
that's
much.
right. Now you do have to explain, just to give a quick sort of why you were a Boston fan even at that time. Just sort of give a quick background, if you would, as to why you were a Boston fan even living in New Jersey.
Okay. So basically, my dad's side of the family all grew up in Massachusetts. So, and I had previously lived in Rhode Island. So I personally had grown up as a Red Sox, Patriots, Canadians fan when it comes to.
we don't need to talk about that today.
Just kind of representing different sides of the family there. And so I had only lived in New Jersey for 3 years. I moved there in the year 2000. I moved out in 2003. So, after living around for the first 10 years of my life, moving there when I was about 10. So this is like maybe when we were in middle school so going to that middle school, I was the only Boston fan, like Patriots fan there. So it was just kind of funny, like, after they won the Super Bowl, everyone was all disappointed because the Jets or the Giants didn't win. They didn't make it through that year. And the coolest memory I had was my 6th grade teacher was the only other Boston fan that I could remember at the time. And the day after they won the Super Bowl, I remember she came in and she had the number 12. I think she had like she came with like a Pats jersey. I think it was still Bledsoe because I think the Brady jerseys weren't really in style at the time. But she came in with her Bledsoe jersey and everything, and we both like gave each other high fives, and everyone was like, So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was very very impactful.
Yeah, no, definitely. And Jerome, I know, obviously, again, sort of not growing up, a Boston fan and all that, sort of living in a different part of the country. What do you remember about sort of that time frame and about that Patriots team? Sort of take us through your perspective on it.
All right, so I must again state this that it wasn't big on my radar. I was mostly growing up Broncos, and I was in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, no, 2nd grade. Yeah, I was in 2nd grade at the time. Actually, no, what am I saying? I was in 2nd, I was in 3rd. Anyways, I wasn't really too big of a sports guy, obviously, then. So I really don't recall too much of like actually thinking about it. I don't really recall too much of how that year was. I think I was just more interested in like other things. I can remember like the Broncos playing the games. Unfortunately, we cannot add too much over to the conversation, other than it was a year of football. I really don't know. Like, this is the point of when the Patriots started building up their team. And
that was the start of the dynasty, so to speak, and like I said, the first of the 6 Super Bowl rings. And obviously, the Super Bowl win that year was a spectacular last-second field goal against the St. Louis Rams. But I think a game that a lot of people remember more from that season was actually the Patriots' first playoff game, which was against the Oakland Raiders in the snow in what was at the time still Foxborough Stadium, now obviously Gillette Stadium. And it's one of the plays that you see just like famously shown when people think about the Patriots dynasty, and that was the tuck rule. Basically, just to explain to people watching who may not know or remember what the tuck rule is, it was a situation where the Patriots were actually down in that first playoff game 13-3 in the second half, and they scored a touchdown. Brady scored a touchdown to make it 13-10. The Patriots got the ball back, and as they were driving, Brady was sacked and fumbled, and Oakland recovered it, and everybody thought that the game was then over. However, they reviewed the play, and because the referee deemed that Brady's arm was going forward to throw a pass, it actually ended up being an incomplete pass instead of a fumble. long story short, the Pats ended up kicking a field goal to tie the game, and then Adam Vinatieri kicked another field goal, again, in the snow, to win the game in overtime. So that's sort of one of the very famous plays and moments when people look back, especially at the early part of this Patriots dynasty. And I mean, I remember, obviously being here in Massachusetts for just everybody being so excited because the Patriots have kind of been like, sort of the bottom feeders and hadn't really been doing very well. And people thought it was good because they were 0-2 to start out the year, and then all of a sudden, Brady comes in for an injured Bledsoe, and they start doing well. And I just remember just the excitement of them winning all the playoff games and winning the Super Bowl, obviously. And I still have, the funny thing is, I have my one Patriots jersey is a Tom Brady jersey that I believe I actually got back like at the very start of Brady, like at like 02, 03, maybe like 04, somewhere around there. I still wear it. It still fits somewhat. Yeah, so that's kind of my memory of it. And like I said, I mean, what a 20-year run it was after that, guys. I mean, again, I mean, just the Patriots sort of became the team that teams modeled themselves after. And back then, really, what was I going to say? But back then, people just sort of looked at the Patriots as just another one of those teams. And, like I said, Brady coming along definitely made a big impact.
I remember the Patriots making an impact that season. Well, it might have been the following after they won the Super Bowl, but my biggest thing that I remember, at least the earliest memories of it, was the beginning of the season. They did the kickoff, like they were the first game of the season, the following season after the Super Bowl. And it was a huge spectacle. Like it was like fireworks, everyone running in. Like it's the first opening game. Again, I was really young at the time. I was with my brothers and my dad's like, oh yeah, like again, the hardcore Broncos fan, they just hated the Patriots. They ruined everything. They all got the money. They complained so much. I'm like, it's like, oh yeah, they own. Like they say, oh, like they own the NFL. Like very salty. They're very salty.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting you bring up the Broncos because I feel like as the years have gone along, the Patriots and Broncos rivalry has like continued to like intensify, especially when Peyton Manning went to the Broncos. For that time, like there were some big playoff games between those two teams, like over the last maybe 5-10 years or so when that was going on. So I mean, and the Broncos have had a couple Super Bowl wins themselves over the past 5-10 years. So now the Broncos are no slouch either when it comes to the NFL. They are, but yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting to like hear sort of hear about something like this, like a season like this, from obviously a Patriots fan's perspective, but also like a non-Patriots fan's perspective, because it definitely is a different way of looking at it. And yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, just very very different feelings about it based on which team you supported. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, that was sort of the big takeaways I feel like from that 2001 season. And I think one of the other things that we can all kind of touch upon is obviously we were talking, about how that season was centered around September 11th and all that. And it really was, we kind of talked, I know, Kyle, you and I had passions about how sports kind of in that situation sort of brought people together. And I remember one thing I remember about early in that season is that one of the Patriots linemen, a guy by the name of Joe Andruzzi, his brother was a New York City firefighter, and I like the first game after the attacks, he actually had his brother come and they honored his brother like before a game and stuff like that. It was a really cool scene. So just sort of like, let's sort of, I mean, I know, I know we're a sports show and stuff like that, but sometimes, we can kind of delve off into sort of bigger subjects, but I kind of just want to get your guys' perspective because we haven't really talked about it. That whole time frame of September 11th, and Jerome, I'll kind of start with you on this one. Just sort of give us your perspective on just sort of that whole time frame. Looking back, I know again it's 19 years later, which is crazy when you think about it. Yeah. But just sort of give us sort of perspective on that, just that time frame in general, like given what happened earlier on that year.
Do you mean the whole football season in general?
No, just like those events, like September, those events. Yeah.
I was in class. I remember like teachers putting on the radio telling us the events are happening. But she didn't add too much context to it. It wasn't until I got home actually.
Yeah.
And so, I think it might have been around the time too. There's a bit of a difference. It's New Mexico. I remember going back home and I got my family watching the news, talking about oh yeah, fuck, it's happening.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what to. I guess didn't really know how to process it. I was obviously processing it. I'm oh my god, this is happening. But in a town in rural New Mexico and nothing happens. It was just everything around there felt the same. I remember going to the gas station, a lot of just a line of cars just lined up to get gas. But I guess they thought the gas prices are going to rise because of it. That people, I don't know how the information actually spread it. Now that I think about it, that's one of the bigger things. I remember going out for just around the gas station by my house. And then the next day, just my family just talking more about it. It wasn't anything major. Obviously, it was a connection for the country, but in my local connection, New Mexico, at least back then, nothing too much. My uncle did end up joining the military afterwards, though.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's good for him. That's obviously shout out to all our service members out there. That's doing an important battle and keeping us safe and free. So, gotta give a big shout out to them. Yeah,
I think it was definitely a big inspiration for him.
Yeah. Kyle, what about you? What are you like I said, there's sort of those, the events of 9/11 in general. I know we've sort of talked about off air before, but just sort of give us your perspective, especially as someone who's living, pretty close to New York at the time. Sort of talk about sort of just take us through your sort of thoughts and perspective on that.
Well, I definitely felt that impact. I'm not gonna lie. I know I can tell the school really felt it. It really hit hard, I think, for us, especially in New Jersey, because there were actually a number of kids whose parents worked at the World Trade Center. So at that time, it was, and one of my friends actually had lost his dad.
Oh wow!
Who worked there. So it was tough. It was really. It was being closer to, I think, to the site was pretty alarming. It was kind of I kind of had a similar thing with Jerome, where the school was kind of they were all getting worried, but we didn't really know exactly what was going on. There were phone calls going on, and I remember teachers. I think there was even if I remember correctly, there was even someone that wheeled in a TV and turn on the news for a little bit. Or actually, I'm trying to remember if that actually if that happened, or if maybe I heard that from someone else. Sometimes my memory gets a little jumbled up when it comes to that. But I do remember though getting home and very clearly seeing it on the news and seeing all the footage, and it was just very surprising, and it was just very really out of nowhere. And I did end up talking to my parents about it, and I was a little worried too, because my dad did work near New York at the time, and also he did do some traveling, so I was a bit worried, but thankfully my dad I think he was just at his office in just kind of in Lee. I believe he worked in Lee in New York, I believe. So it wasn't,
Yeah.
but still, it was just really scary. It was a scary experience. So.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we were, Kyle and I were in 6th grade when it happened. I remember it was like the end of the day, and we got called back into our homerooms, and the principal came over the loudspeaker and announced what had happened. And I kind of had the same reaction that Jerome did, whereas like I knew something bad had happened, but it was I didn't really get it until I went home. I saw people were upset and stuff like that, so it's it's obvious, this is not a normal thing that has happened, obviously, but I didn't really understand it until I went home that night and turned on the news and saw it firsthand, saw the news footage and stuff like that, and then that's when you kind of it hits you, it's oh my gosh, this happened, this is huge. And it was scary. I mean, it really was, because you're what's going to happen? Is something going to happen next? I know, my dad was in California, on business when it happened. It's oh my God, is he okay? Obviously, again, that's what sort of goes out of my 12-year-old mind. Somehow my dad's been affected when he's already in California. The attacks happened in New York. Go figure. But just all these different thoughts go through your mind, and it was definitely a tough time. But like I said, I think sports kind of helped to bring things back together after what happened, and the Patriots were a big part of that. And obviously, it was nice that they were able to cap off that year. It's kind of appropriate that a team called the Patriots in that time frame kind of won it all that season. So what we want to do is we want to sort of start to wrap up here. Jerome, since you are our special guest, I just wanted to give you sort of a chance to sort of give a final thought. It can be about anything. It doesn't have to be related to this topic. You can sort of choose, but just sort of any sort of final thoughts you have as we close out another wonderful guest appearance by you on a Couch Talking Sports.
Final thoughts is, one, thank you for having me. I just love being a part of it.
No, anytime, dude. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I would say if I was more into football in that time period, I wish I had more to say. But knowing how the sports is, going to the Patriots game even nowadays, so fun. I just love doing my laps around the stadium and reading all the strangers. And I'm sure it was just as an intense time back then, if not more, than it is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was fun.
Perfect way to describe it. Yeah, I think since we're doing sort of final thoughts, I think we'll all sort of do my final thoughts before we get to the Sue's reviews, which is another lovely segment. And my final thought is, obviously right now, in the U.S., there are no real sort of live sports, unfortunately, due to all that's going on. But there was sort of an interesting event that took place on ESPN yesterday, actually, and it was televised horse. For those of you who don't know, horse is sort of a basketball game where you're shooting and you're trying to get the ball in the basket. If you get the ball in the basket, then your opponent has to get the ball in the basket, or else they get a letter and you have to spell out horse, etc. And so ESPN actually had former and current NBA and WNBA players compete against each other in horse. Now, obviously, they were all at their own homes, sort of the whole social distancing. They were at their own homes doing it via, video chat or whatever. And it was just kind of, it's kind of interesting to see, that sort of unique programming, and sort of this different time that we are in. And the other thing I wanted to say is that we're very slowly starting to see sports and pro sports sort of trickle back into things, because not here, but in Taiwan, they actually held yesterday their first professional baseball games since the epidemic began yesterday. And so it was kind of nice to see. Now, they don't have any fans in the stands, but still, it was really nice to see actually some pro sports being played, some pro sports highlights for once. Sort of gave even just sort of tiniest sense of starting to get back to normal, which we all hope will come here sooner rather than later. But just knock on wood. But so now to throw it over, because he's waiting patiently as he always does, the Sue's review. So Kyle, take it away. What do you got for us?
All right, so I wanted to talk about, so I'm going to lift Jerome a little bit in this one too, because he has seen it.
Okay.
We had both watched this crazy series on Netflix. I'm sure you've heard of it at this point. Did I review this yet? Did I review Tiger King?
No, you did not. No.
I did not. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so Jerome and I had just finished this incredibly, I don't even know how to describe it. It's one of the trashiest documentaries I think I've ever seen.
Oh, jeez.
About the Tiger King, and it's about this guy named Joe Exotic, and just his crazy life, that he as a zookeeper, and it delves so much into all that, and it was crazy. What do you think?
Okay, as I'm sure if anyone it's a current phenomenon because a lot of people have been phenomenon. A lot of people have been watching it. And it's big news.
Yeah, lots of memes.
Personal reviews. It's a show about exotic, I wouldn't say crazy rednecks, but lots of drama, and there's no clear side of who's a good person in it. They're they're all bad, or some. Yeah. There are some stories here. It was just this all these events and these people and more than personality. It just keeps you so glued into it. It's a train wreck where you're never gonna look away. Funny as hell though. Jesus, these people are I would say 10 give it a watch. It's definitely worth all the watching it's getting right now.
Oh yeah, it really is. It does get a little intense though. So if obviously don't show this to your kids. It's rated TV. It's got some very crazy stuff there.
Is it a murder, or does it involve something about murder or something like that? Yeah.
It's just so crazy. The tagline is murder, mayhem, and mystery and all that stuff, and it lives up to that name.
Wow.
It's a wacky documentary. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. I don't think there ever will be anything like it, to be honest.
It's a mix of a documentary and a reality TV show, and they do such a good job putting them together.
Well, it sounds very appropriate for the time that we're living in right now. So, because I know it's kind of been all over the news and the social media and stuff like that, people talking about. So they definitely have done a good job of sort of getting people talking. That's for sure. But definitely, I haven't seen it. I might check it out at some point. But definitely, like I said, sort of a series that is ripping up the internet and ripping up Netflix these days. So yeah. All right, well, thank you, Kyle, as always, for that. And we're going to wrap up another edition of On a Couch Talking Sports. Jerome, thank you as always. Pleasure having you on, and you're welcome back any time, as always. Hopefully for another mini golf episode somewhere down the road when things get back to normal.
Summertime will come.
Yes, and I can't wait for it. So, for Jerome and for Kyle, I'm Robbie, signing off for another social distancing edition of On a Couch Talking Sports. We will see you next time, everybody.